Hello and welcome to Panorama. I'm Mark Glasgow, and coming up on our program tonight, we want to focus on our four-legged friends in the animal kingdom. And joining us to do that from the Worcester Animal Clinic is Dr. Greg Cantrell. And Greg, welcome to our program.
Mark, glad to be here again.
You know, it's springtime and things warm up, and with the warm weather come pests that, I guess that's true. We used to think of these things we're going to talk about as maybe warm weather, but anymore, fleas especially, I think you guys encourage us to treat for fleas all year round anymore.
You're right, and we hope it's going to get warm here in the near future and so forth. With the winter we've had and all that good stuff, I'm about ready. If somebody discusses global warming with me again, I'm ready to punch him in the face. But we hope that here being the 1st of April, it's going to get warmed up. And you're absolutely right. People a lot of times mistakenly think that fleas are killed off by cold weather, and they are in the environment. But if they are on a pet, if they are on an animal, they can survive over the winter, even outside, as long as they've got a warm body to be on. And so the other thing that people fail to realize is, the life cycle of the flea is such that there is a stage where they their larval stage gets in like a little cocoon, and they can remain dormant in there for several weeks to /months. And so all of a sudden, midwinter, you can have a hatch out of fleas in a warm environment, in a house or an apartment or something like that. And then you can get reinfestation. And that's what the key is to control even during the summer months. People say, well, why do I have to do it all year round? Because it's that environmental infestation that comes from the pets themselves. The flea lays the egg on the dog or the cat, and then they walk around the house and the eggs drop off. And so you need to really use something that kills both the adult and the egg stage. You want to make sure that, and that's how you can get these infestations, middle of the winter and so forth.
You talk about infestations. At what point are fleas a problem? I don't know if that's a stupid question. If your dog has a flea, is that a problem?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If you're very allergic to bee stings, how many bees do you need to get stung by to be in the hospital?
One,
yes. And some dogs and cats are so allergic to flea bites that, 1 or 2 fleas will drive them crazy. I've seen Chihuahuas come in with 15 fleas and not hardly blinking an eye. I've seen Labrador Retrievers come in with 3 or 4 fleas, and the hair is gone from the mid-back all the way back to the base of the tail, and so they cause such an allergic reaction. And in fact, that's one of the diseases we're going to talk about here on our list. The first one, it's called FAD or FAD or whatever you want to call it, but it stands for flea bite allergic dermatitis.
Oh, okay.
And so what happens is, excuse me, when a flea bites a dog, it's like a mosquito. It injects a little bit of saliva into the skin. And I always use the analogy of my children, I get bitten by a mosquito, I swat it once, I scratch it once, I'm done, okay? If they even bite me at all. I'm just one of those lucky people. My kids are like my wife. They get bitten by a mosquito, they well up the size of a nickel, and they're scratching that spot for 5 days, even though the mosquito is long gone. And what happens is, when a flea or a mosquito takes a blood meal, and they're both the same, they're little bloodsuckers, they inject saliva into our skin to keep the blood from clotting. That is what the dog and the cat are extremely allergic to. So the bottom line is, even though you've got 2 or 3 fleas, they keep biting and biting and moving on. 3 days after that flea has moved to a different spot, we're still scratching the spot where the original bite took place. And what happens then is we get redness, we get inflammation, and it's just a scratch it cycle. And they abrade that skin to the point that they get a secondary bacterial infection. And so that is itchy in itself, and so it will cause them to continue the itch. The classic signs of flea bite allergic dermatitis is loss of hair from about the middle of the back down to the base of the tail. That's where most fleas inhabit pets. Okay. And so they a lot of times then get little papules or scabs with them and so forth. And a lot of people want to treat them with Benadryl for the itching or cortisone, and you can treat them that way symptomatically, but the bottom line is, if you don't get rid of the fleas, as soon as the medication is gone, then it starts back up again. So it hides the signs and so forth. When we have those bacterial infections, we actually usually have to add antibiotics also to treat them. So it's very, very important to not only treat, one, if you have multiple pets, you need to treat all of them, and two, do some environmental treatment as far as that goes, because if you treat one and not the other, they'll constantly reinfect each other. So.
Okay. When we talk about fleas, I mean, obviously it's the itching that comes to mind first and foremost as maybe the worst problem. Now you talk about the actual allergy maybe associated with fleas, but this next problem with fleas is really serious, and that is that it causes the pets to be anemic.
It does, and it can. It's more of an issue in small kittens or small puppies because they don't have the body reserve. And we got to remember, just like lice in other species, and puppies and kittens can get lice also, but fleas are bloodsuckers, and they're taking a blood meal pretty much 24/7. And we used to be taught that, oh, fleas only stayed on the dog or the cat maybe 10, 15% of the time. That is absolutely wrong, what we were taught 30 years ago. We were taught that based on the usage of the rat flea for a model and so forth. And that the rat flea does. They take a blood meal and jump off. And that's how we got the bubonic plague and so forth in the Middle Ages. They were caused by the flea of the rats, not the rat themselves. But the dog and cat flea spends 98% of their time on the pet. I mean, you know, they've got other little fleas to hang out with. They got a warm body. They got lunch all the time. Why would they leave? So, you know, you get your environmental infestation, as we talked about earlier, from the eggs dropping off into the environment. So, you know, they're not leaving, and they're just continually, pardon the term, sucking blood. And so, especially on a small kitten or puppy, you know, in a few days to weeks, depending on how many fleas they have, they can be made anemic. We actually have seen in the last couple of years probably 4 or 5 adult cats have fleas so severely that they're anemic and to the point of being life-threatening. And you know, when you go to bathe those cats, because that's the fastest way to get the fleas off of them is bathe them, and you're always hesitant to do that because the bath stresses them a little bit. But the soap suds are just like a reddish brown, and that's because when fleas take a blood meal, they use the liquid portion of the blood, they excrete the cellular portion, and that's what when you see all that, you know, people say, how do I know my pet has fleas? When you see all that stuff that looks like black dandruff or looks like pepper on your cat or dog, that's flea dirt, flea excrement, flea doo-doo, whatever you want to call it. It's dried blood, and when you rehydrate it, it turns red.
Wow.
And so you'll see some of these, you know, people that they'll do the bath themselves, and they call us frantically, oh my gosh, my cat's bleeding all over the place. What am I doing wrong? Well, you're just rehydrating the flea droppings, and it's turning back to blood. So.
Okay. Go ahead.
No,
you were drawing a breath. I thought you had more to say.
No.
We want to talk about preventing fleas because obviously, you know, an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure, they say.
Yep.
And of course, we go back to the things that we've talked about several times on the program before. That's the topical.
Yep.
Now, there are other ways as well, but let's start with the old standby, the topical application.
Well, and that's the one that is probably used most commonly. And back to your original statement, yeah, the best way to combat fleas is to never get them. And so, you know, people are like, when should I be starting flea control? Well, if you've had them in the past, you probably ought to be on flea control year round.
Okay.
If not, this time of year, like now, is when you want to get on. And some people say, well, I'm not seeing fleas yet. Again, get that prevention on there. So the topical products go along the back of the neck, and they're generally absorbed into the upper derm layers of the skin. None of the topics, as far as flea control, are absorbed systemically. They don't go into the blood or anything like that. And they stay on top of the skin, and they get into the upper derm layers. And if you want to think of it simplistically, they basically provide nerve gas for fleas. Okay, they affect the flea's neurologic system and so forth, and it kills them that way and usually kills them very rapidly. And so the advantages of the topical medications are you generally only have to give them once a month, and they go on pretty easily, and they don't really, they're very low toxicity to the pet or to people handling them and so forth. We do sometimes see some reactions from the carrier that are in them, and so, you know, redness at the site of application or itching at the site of application, and just like some people can't take aspirin, some dogs and cats can't take this. And so there are also systemic products, and again, that gets back to medications that you give orally. And there are a couple of out there. One of them is a product called NexGard. One of them is a product called Comfortis. And basically, they work very rapidly. And even though, like with Comfortis, the flea bites the dog to get the the product, it kills it very rapidly and so forth, and it doesn't need to take much of a blood meal whatsoever. And so a lot of people that live in Florida, a lot of veterinarians down there laugh at us for trying to use topicals because they just don't think they work at all. And they use Comfortis or NexGard, something like that. And again, those are monthly treatments. Some of the oral products make claims of up to 2 to 3 months. I pretty much stick with the monthly ones. If you've got that heavy flea infestation, you probably ought to be doing something monthly as far as that goes. So.
Okay. What about the, I guess, homeopathic treatment for pets and fleas? Is there anything garlic or Tabasco sauce or anything like that?
Well, we hear these over the years, and there's everything from garlic to brewer's yeast. To elemental sulfur. None of these have been proven to work. They don't hurt the pet usually, but they just don't seem to give benefit. You hear about the citronella or citrus type products and so forth, and they all natural. I just don't have any experience with them, and there's people that claim Dawn dishwashing soap will kill fleas. I don't have any experience with that also. The problem with any of the shampooings, though, is you kill the fleas that are on the pet now, and as soon as you rinse that product off, there's no residual activity. Okay. So if you have them in the environment, the fleas will come right back onto the pet. So, that's what you've got to consider.
And when you say that word environment, I think people think, well, outdoors, things like that. You're actually talking about the environment in which the animal lives. So that could be your basement, your family room, wherever the carpeting is, in the bedroom, wherever.
Doesn't even have to be carpeting. I mean, if you've got hardwood floors with little cracks in the floor, the eggs will get down in there and remain dormant as far as that goes. And environment does also include the outside area, the grassy area and so forth. Now, a lot of people, we used to have some of the products that worked off the end of the hose, and there's still some out there by Ortho that work pretty good. Most of the time, we see the real environmental issues in the late summer. When things start to cool off, these hatch out, and that's when we see like cats that come in that are totally indoor cats, and they got fleas. How did they get them? Well, either the owner had to carry them in, or the owner's friends carried them in. So. So you have to treat both those. You can use types of sprays, the home sprayer kits for your inside environment. You can get products that go off the end of the hose for the outside grassy areas and so forth. When you do the grass, a lot of people want to spray the whole yard. You really don't need to. Usually any place that is in total sunlight, flea larvae don't last very long because the sun desiccates them and dries them out. You want to spray the semi-shaded areas, back under decks, back under places where it's semi-shaded as far as that goes. But again, you need to treat the pet and the environment. And I tell people, if you've used a couple of home sprayer kits and you still have fleas in the environment, you might as well just bite the bullet and contact a professional exterminator.
Okay. Did I see advertised on television the other day a new high-tech flea collar?
There is one, Serestro. We don't have a lot of experience with that. It's pretty new. It claims activity up to 8 months. It's a product by Bayer, and we use a lot of Bayer's Advantage product. And I guess we're just kind of take a wait-and-see attitude on that and see if it actually works the way it says it is. They're kind of expensive. They're a little pricey. But if it does give you a full 8 months, then it would be worth it. We've just... I guess we sort of wait and see if those products, we've been caught in that a couple other times where you jump right on that bandwagon and all of a sudden the product doesn't work the way it's supposed to, or worse yet, it gets recalled because now that it's out in the public, there's things happening that they didn't realize. But this product, Bayer is a pretty reputable company, and I would expect that in the near future we might consider that and so forth. But yes, it is out there.
Yeah, it just shocked me to see because I know we've talked about flea collars in the past and the ones that are still available today, how they... I mean, if the flea is running around your neck, dog's neck, you're okay, but otherwise it probably doesn't help as much as it should.
The older style flea collars relied on the product being in the collar and sort of radiating over top of the animal. This Serestro flea collar is very much like putting Advantage or Advantage Multi on the neck. It's supposed to diffuse out of that collar into the upper derm layers and make that protective blanketing over the entire animal. So it's like giving an 8-month dose of Advantage almost. And so if it works, it'll be great. We know Advantage works. We just don't have a lot of experience with that collar. So not that it's unsafe or anything. We're just going to sort of wait and see.
That's not a bad attitude to have. Wait and see. We want to move on now to ticks. And, you think immediately of Lyme disease, and that is a nasty thing, a nasty disease that affects not only your pets, but also people. And